Good morning. This is Damon Scott, Marketing Director here at PVBS, and I'm joined today with Paul Skurpsky, our Senior VP of Sales and Marketing. And I want to thank everyone for joining us on our introduction to the Microsoft Dynamics NAV for government contractors. Today we're going to be providing an overview of the Dynamics NAV for government contractors. A little housekeeping as we go through it today. This webinar is being recorded, and it will be posted to our PVBS YouTube account, which is PVBS Dynamics NAV. That'll be posted later today. As we're going through the webinar, if you have any questions, please post those into the question section. We will try to get to those as we go along. If we cannot get to your question, we will try to save a little time towards the end, but if we can't, we'll certainly contact you separately. Also, later today, you should receive an email invitation to take a post-webinar survey. We really appreciate your feedback that you can help us make this a better learning tool for everyone. So please take a few minutes and answer some questions for us. We really do appreciate that. Now, the agenda for today's webinar, again, includes a brief introduction about PVBS. Then we're going to jump right into a demonstration of the product. And hopefully we'll cover during the presentation a little bit about the executive dashboards, the fully integrated web time and expense system, project setups, including billing setups and managing funding, invoicing and invoice formats, as well as managing indirect rates. Again, if you have questions as we're going through these, please post those and we will try to get to those as we go along. A little bit about PVBS. We are a top-tier Microsoft Business Solutions partner, serving only the government contracting market. Our headquarters are just outside Washington, D.C. in Reston, Virginia. It gives us a unique access and insight into the GovCon community. Also, as an experienced leader with over 15 years of success in the government contracting market and an intelligent innovator with Microsoft systems, PVBS is a direct resource to both government contractors and the Microsoft community. The Microsoft Dynamics NAV for government contractors from PVBS is a rich, robust accounting solution. It's compliant with federal rules and regulations. The system is certified by Microsoft and tightly integrates the critical financial management components government contractors need to manage their business. The entire financial management workflow for government contractors requires such as general ledger, budgeting, reporting, business analytics, and project accounting are operated from within the solution without the need for third-party add-ons or components. And from here, I'm going to turn it over to Mr. Paul Skurpsky, again, one of the founders here at PVBS and our VP of Sales and Marketing. Welcome, Paul.
All right. Thanks, Damon, and appreciate everybody's time today. Looking forward to giving you guys a little preview into, actually, we're going to show some elements of Dynamics NAV 2017, so the new release from Microsoft. And I've been working with this product since the late 90s, so actually before Microsoft bought the software. So as you can see, I've gotten more and more mature with gray hair and such through the years. So Dynamics NAV, it's been out there for a while. So Microsoft bought this company around 2002, but the solution's been out there since the late 80s. And now there's over 130,000 companies worldwide that use it, and they have over 2 million licensed users of the application, which makes it the most widely used mid-market accounting system in the world. So it's pretty exciting, and I think people have heard a lot of buzz about things going on in Microsoft, and I think for our next webinar, we're going to get into some of those new elements. We're going to touch on some today, which is going to be Power BI. But Microsoft released recently a full-blown HR solution called Talent, which has some integration into LinkedIn. That's kind of one of the elements of LinkedIn that Microsoft's going to leverage. And then there's also a product called PSA, which is more of a full planning solution, so professional services planning solution. And those things are integrated back into NAV. So this slide it comes from Microsoft, and really what it speaks to is how Microsoft goes after the marketplace. And what they do is they develop software applications that can work for a lot of different industries. Then they want partners to focus on vertical markets. And one of those key vertical markets is the one that we focus on, which is government contracting. And we're excited to be a partner with Microsoft in this time of leveraging the web and mobile. And then Damon also mentioned something called CFMD, or he said this was certified by Microsoft. So CFMD means that certified for Microsoft Dynamics, and our solution, so the things that we've done to improve NAV, is actually certified by Microsoft, and we just got the the word back from Microsoft within the last month that our NAV 2017 solution has now gotten officially that stamp of approval from Microsoft. So we're really excited about that. So some of the things that I'm going to touch on today kind of show some of these improvements that Microsoft has made. So one says Office 365 experience, and a couple of the elements, it says works natively with Power BI. That's the Microsoft dashboard tool. I'm going to show you a little bit about that. The different ways you can get to the system. So I'm going to show you all three today. So I'm going to show you what it's like from a desktop view, just a straight browser view, and also a phone view. I guess I left out tablet. I'm running a laptop today, so I'm going to skip the tablet one. And then Microsoft also built in all sorts of workflow capabilities. So those would be some of the areas I focus on today. Like Damon mentioned, if you have questions as we go through this, please don't hesitate to put a question in the question panel. We typically cover them towards the end unless it's something that's really relevant to that area. All right, so let me go ahead and I'm going to hop into the system here, and I'm going to show you from two different views. So one view I'm going to call a project accountant view, and then the other view is going to be an accounting manager. So as a project accountant, one of the things that's important to me is really information, right? So I'm one of the people that's going to deliver information out to the field. I'm going to build out certain reports and dashboards that are available. So this is the first element where you see Power BI getting leveraged inside of Dynamics NAV. So with this latest version, Microsoft has embedded Power BI. So Power BI is part of the Office 365 suite. You don't have to have the whole suite in order to use Power BI, but Power BI is a dashboard tool. So now you've got embedded dashboards right inside of your financial system. So you can build out these dashboards, and these are the default set that we have. And these dashboards are also interactive. So I'm just kind of clicking through the dashboard. So information about labor data, revenue data, including information of where that revenue is coming from, and then more of like a visual PSR. And you can see that they have different filters or slicers over the right. So in this case, if I wanted to filter by a particular project manager, I can just click that box, and now you see this PM actually has one project, and you can see the details of that. Similar concept with contract. So I'm going to show you later on how you can attach a contract to work being performed. And now I'm seeing, what are all of the task orders and delivery orders underneath that contract. This, in addition to being interactive like this, you also have the ability to drill down into it. So I can drill into, in this case, my labor, and it's showing me a breakout by labor category code, and I can get all the way down to who are the individual people. So that's the drill down concept. And you see an area for focus mode and also more options. So if I hit focus mode, what it does is it actually pops it out, and now it's my full view of my the element of my page here. In addition to seeing it in focus mode, if I wanted to see, right here, I can see that Andrew, it's a little over $5,500 in labor costs for the period. If I wanted to see that more in a grid, if I hit see data here, now I'm seeing that same information in a grid. So, what are the labor hours and actual costs by person? So not only is it interactive, but I can have charts and also get to the individual data as needed. So this is what Power BI offers, and that Power BI element, I'm not going to go through in terms of how these things are built out, but we've got a set of views that are project-specific views, and there's also a set of financial views. And I know we have some existing clients that are on the phone today, and one of the things, just to let them know that I'm really excited about, is that if you guys, for anyone that's on the finance team, the account schedules, which you may be familiar with, these are dynamically all now available inside of Power BI. So when you build out an account schedule, you can push that to Power BI, and really somebody running financial reports, you can have them delivered through Power BI, and then you get all the rich graphics as part of that. So like I mentioned, we've got different sets of views, and we've got some standard queries that will pull the data from NAV and make it available in Power BI. And you can see that Power BI can be viewed inside of NAV as a standalone from the Power BI client, or you could have Power BI in terms of just browser access. So I'm going to log into Power BI so folks can get an idea of what is it like to, how do I log in? So I just hit sign in. And for people that use Office 365 today, this kind of looks familiar. I just select my name. I'm going to go ahead and put in my password. Hit sign in. And now what it's going to do is it's going to drop me into my list of views. And then from here, I've got different reports and dashboards. So here is a certain dashboard that I have. And I can select any of those. And then as a user, same idea in terms of that focus mode. And then there's also this concept of pinning reports. So when I drill into one of these views, it takes me into the detail, and then I can actually pin one of these elements to my desktop. So I can pick, if you delivered, say, 5 different reports to your PMs, they could pin the one that they think is most relevant. And all of these things are interactive. So if I choose a certain customer, now I'm seeing this customer, Fort Belvoir, what are the different projects that we're working on for them, and where is that work being performed? So just one way of how you can interact with the data, and that's Power BI, and that's something exciting that Microsoft's doing there. The other thing that I talked about was the different interfaces. So this is what they call the installed client, right? So for any customer out there that's using NAV today, this will look familiar, where you can actually pull up different projects, and you've got over to the right this idea of a status bar, which is showing me details about contract value and funded value, AR balance, and all these are, we have the ability to drill into them, so I can drill into the AR balance and see all the details behind it. And then you can pull up all of your historical invoices that created the AR balance. So interactive, it's a client that's installed locally. The second option, and this is for people that I don't want to install any software on my folks' machine, there's just a web view. So I'm just coming from a web client, and what you see is when I open it up, it looks almost the same. So similar concepts with the ribbon. I can select projects that I either want to edit or view. So I'll go ahead and we'll pull one up, and what you'll see is the same kind of information, all available to me that I'm getting from that rich client experience. So now fully browser-based, easy for people to access really from anywhere in the world. So that's the second type of client that I talked about. And then the third type of client I'm going to go to is the recently released the mobile experience. So today, more than ever, in fact, I think Damon's probably on Twitter on his phone right now tweeting about this. So we're all connected to our cell phones. So what you're seeing here is a view of, as a user in the application, you can get to things from the mobile client. So anything from entering time in a timesheet to there's a concept called My Trip, which allows me as an expense entry user to just create some expense costs on the fly. So if I had some additional expenses, I could just go ahead and say today, I'm going to go to lunch with Damon. I could say lunch with Damon. By the way, this is our lunch right here. Oh, yeah, absolutely. All right, we'll go to lunch after this. All right. And that lunch, we can spend up to $25, Damon, between the two of us.
That's it.
Yeah. So, and then I could also upload a receipt if needed. So it's a way that I can record costs on the fly, and then later on I can associate them with an expense report. So we've got this My Trip capability. I can also enter data in a timesheet. So this is where I can record my timesheet expenses. And then I can look at any of my historical timesheets, expense reports, ask for PTO, and then also approve anything that I need to approve, which would be timesheets, expense reports, or PTO requests. So I can actually get in the details of what I need to approve, and then come in here and actually approve or reject. So that's kind of a new exciting thing, which is that mobile client experience, which you can get to from an Android device, an Apple device, or a Microsoft device. So any of those three devices, you can go to those app stores and download those. And it also has the ability for you to get into Power BI from that same app, because there's a phone element to Power BI. So that's kind of the third piece to how people get to information, right? So I've got an installed client, a mobile client, and then also just going to a web browser. So, you know, really rich experience for the different types of users. And that gives you a sense for kind of from a technology perspective where Microsoft is going. Now we've got a lot of folks that are interested in seeing, you know, kind of the day-to-day things that I do. How do I interact with the system? So what I want to do now is I'm going to spend a little bit of time walking you through what I'll call a day in the life. You know, when we win a new contract, how do we manage it? I showed you time from a mobile client, but also just show you from a browser. But before we do, maybe it'd be good to get an idea of the folks that are on the call, because I did see some clients on here, but to get an idea of what systems people are using that are on the call today, maybe, Damon.
Yeah, I just put that quick poll up there. Yet again, we do have a lot of clients on the call today, because we are just unveiling the new 2017 Dynamics NAV, and they're taking a look at it for upgrading purposes. So there are companies out there, obviously, that use.
So let's give it like 30 seconds here for them to enter. So it looks like, you know, right now we've got, it looks like about 20%, okay, but going up. So about 15% are other, which I guess we didn't put the one for Dynamics NAV. So yeah. I guess there's some on there, and the other, we've got about 50% of the people on Dell Tech GCS Premier, another 10 that are on CostPoint, and about 5% on QuickBooks. So looks like we've got a lot of Dell Tech users, a few QuickBooks users that are out there. So, you know, good to get an idea of the kind of folks that are out there, you know, in today's webinar. So great. All right, so let's go ahead and let's talk a little bit about that day-to-day process in terms of how people are using the system. And what I'll do is I'm going to go ahead and we'll launch a job just to talk about, you know, how it's set up and how it's managed there. So what we talked earlier about this status box showing you information. There's also a box for documents. So that links box is a way that you can attach documents to a record. So in this case, maybe it's the contract file, or it's funding mod. So that's the idea of the link box over there. And then in terms of when we set up a job, so the first thing I want to go to is actually going to start from the bottom, and then we'll go back up to the top. And the reason is because I want to touch on this contract. So if you remembered earlier when we were showing you those dashboards and we had that filter by contract, this is how the system knows what is the contract vehicle that work is being performed under. So in this case, I've attached a contract to the work being performed, and that goes into what we call a contract card. So that contract card is going to give me details about everything from, you know, contracting office information on the government side, information about the period of performance, if there's any kind of fees associated with it. So if you guys have a GSA contract, you've got to pay fees for all that, the labor that you bill through it. So any contract vehicle that has industrial funding, so you can identify what that funding rate is. For folks that sell products, we've got what we call an item catalog, which is the ability to identify products that you sell and your default cost and bill rate for that particular vehicle. And then we also have information about T&M bill rates. So under contract resource pricing, this is where I'm identifying what are my projected T&M bill rates through time by labor category code. So if you have a GSA contract and it's a 10-year schedule, I can identify those 10 years of rates, put them in the system, and then any contract or any job, I should say, that uses that, open this up a few extra times here, any job that uses those rates, you can use this copy contract pricing to bring in those T&M rates to that job. So the first thing is that's how the system knew what contract was attached to work being performed. So if you want to do any analysis at the contract level, you can do that because that field is assigned to all work being performed. On the general tab, you've got information about this particular job. So the description of it, the client that you're doing the work for, and you've got this little drop down which looks into a list of all your customers. You can create a new one on the fly or just assign one from your existing customer list. Then you've got different contacts, so there's a contact management system built into it that allows me to see who is the contact for that work being performed, then information about the period of performance, and other data related to that particular job. Then in the posting tab, there's information regarding, revenue and billing formulas, and then depending on the type of contract, we've got different setups for, in this case, it's a cost plus fixed fee, and the recovery of your indirects could be based on your corporate structure, or you could have an indirect rate structure that's unique to this job. So in this example, it's just using the company structure, but maybe you've got an example where you can't recover G&A on travel. So you can model that contract billing the way that that contract was issued. And then you've got fee percent or fee amount, which is a fee on hours or any kind of withholding. So these are the top level setups, and then underneath that main job, we have what we call a work breakdown structure, or WBS, which is a 20-character alphanumeric field, and this is a way that users can structure a job from both a cost capture, billing, and funding perspective, and it could be unique by job. So in this example, I've got my top level, my Dynamics NAV implementation, and then beneath that, I've got a series of tasks and subtasks. So on each of these tasks and subtasks, if I look at the task detail, what you're going to see is it's got its own period of performance and it's got its own contract type. So you could have an example where that main job could be cost plus fixed fee, but I've got a task that's firm fixed price. So the system can support those hybrid type contracts. Then on any of these levels, you can identify the CLIN or ACRN from a funding perspective, and that contract and funded value can be at any level of the WBS. So in my example here, it's at level 2, which in this case is my charging level, which means this $20 million is only available to be used for that charge code. If I had set it at level 1, what that would mean is that that funding could be used across any of these elements that start with that 001 series. The value of that funding, if I drill into it, you would see the detail of historically any mod against this particular contract. So you'd see the history of those mods. Those mods can be both financial mods and non-financial mods. So maybe there is a change to the period of performance. You can identify that in the description. I give details. Maybe you had a change to the point of contact, the POC. You could do that same kind of thing and model that inside the system. The next thing is, so that kind of gives you a sense for that contract and funded value. The next thing to note is the timesheets and expense reports. So one thing that's a little bit unique here is that it's all working off one database, so I don't need to synchronize between the accounting system and the timesheet system. It's all within that one database. And then this checkbox here just saying, oh, this is visible on a timesheet or expense report, is just telling the system that this is something where people can charge time to or expenses to. And as soon as I check that box, the system knows that it should be made visible on a timesheet. The people that can see it would be whoever is assigned from a membership perspective here. So you can create membership that's unique to the job. So if I didn't have a team assigned, if I just click the ellipse, it would allow me to create a team on the fly for that particular job. But if I'm reusing one of my setups, I can identify that, here's the original people on the team. They can see this job too, and then I can assign others that might be outside of that team. This allows me to control it not only by job, but also job task combination. And then there's also a visibility control that allows me to tell the system that maybe one user can't see it for the full pop. So everybody else that doesn't have the visibility from and to set, they can see it for whatever period is on that task setup. So the system automatically controls that, and they only see it for that particular period. And then the time and expense approval and requisition approval hierarchies are the way that you can define, who approves time, expenses, and requisitions. And those can be multi-level, so there's no limit in terms of the number of levels. So, no matter what the job, that's how that work breakdown structure is going to drive that setup to really, manage the project from, again, billing, cost capture, and then funding and contract value. So it's a little bit about the setup there. There's also the ability to set budgeting, so you can define unlimited number of budgets in the system. Those budgets can also be accessed from reports. So when we were over in Power BI, one of the measures is budget. So you can define, maybe your baseline budget, and then you continue to reforecast throughout the year. That can be made available from a reporting perspective to capture that actual versus budget, whether it's baseline or one of the other budget numbers easily there. You also have import-export capability from Excel inside the application. So that's a little bit about a cost-type project and some of the setups. I'm going to flip over to a T&M to give you a little insight into how a T&M is different, how that's managed. So go ahead and pop up a T&M project. So I won't go through the other setups, but what I will touch on is where a T&M is different. Instead of you billing based on cost plus your burdens plus your fee or profit, all of that is built into your labor prices. So if you remember when we were on that contract, we defined for the contract vehicle what the pricing was, and then if you copy it in, then it creates project-specific pricing. So what this is showing is what we'll filter on one labor category code. It's saying for job 2025, for the consultant one labor category code, effective 1/5/2017, that bills at $251.92. So you're seeing by effective date what that labor rate is. Then the second thing that I'm doing is I'm identifying in the system what are the labor category codes people are working under. So each employee gets assigned what we call a corporate labor category code, and then you can have that overridden at the project or job level with a project labor category code. So if I look at this job, you can see the individual resources and for this project 2025, what their labor category code is. So the combination of those two setups are going to drive what the bill rates will be for these individuals. The other thing that you see is up in the ribbon, there's a button for Excel. So if I hit the Excel button, what this does is it takes the data from that list and it's going to drop that into Excel. So I'll go over to Excel, and what you're going to see is effective this date and time, here is that information that was dropped off. So in this case, it's showing same data. If I wanted to create, maybe on this job, we're going to give this customer a discount on this consultant one labor category code. And I'm just going to do the calculation in Excel and say that this is going to be a 1% discount off our base rates. Go ahead and I'll copy that all the way down. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to bring it back into NAV. So I can take these rates, update them in Excel, and then I'm just going to copy that. I'm going to come back inside of NAV, and I'm going to take out our old rates, which were our default rates. And now we'll just go ahead and we'll paste. Whoops. 1 second. I made a mistake and I pasted everything in the first cell the first time. It's actually a good way to show you guys that if you make a mistake, it doesn't corrupt the data. It just, in this case, gave me an error to say that when I was trying to paste that in, it gave me a validation error. So we'll do it the right way this time, and we'll paste the whole row. and now you see that detail that we created in Excel, we brought it into the system. So that's kind of one way it interacts with Excel. And same concepts with Office 365. So if you're using like an Excel as part of Office 365, you also have that kind of capability. The other thing to note is, how things interact with Excel. I created, go ahead and close this. I was just in a presentation last week, and somebody asked me if unbillable charges. So if there were charges that we couldn't bill for whatever reason, how did you manage those? And I want to show this other thing with how it works with Excel. And what I did is I created a view that said everything that was marked as ignore for billing, put that on this view. So I'm going to go ahead and remove this no, and I'm going to show everything that can be billed. And I'm going to add something to my list of things that can't be billed. So I'm going to go ahead and we'll find another line that we want to just mark as, that it can't be billed. And let's take this line here, this line for direct travel, and we're just going to mark that as something that we want to ignore for billing. So under my actions, I'll set ignore for billing equal to yes. So now what's going to happen is if I go back and click on that unbillable charges, you can see now that that new line just got added. So as a user, I can set filters on data, and I can save that view. In this case, I was just updating an existing view. But what's neat about that is if I was in Excel, so if I send this off to Excel, if somebody updated NAV and I've got my Excel sheet, this automatically gets updated. And what I do is I just go into my Dynamics NAV tab, click refresh, and it would get a real-time connection for whatever update. So kind of took us off track a little bit from the job setup, but these are, as costs hit the job and you want to manage how they're billed, or if they can be billed, you can quickly not only create a list, but I can manage that, see it in Excel or inside a NAV. So we were on that job here. Let's go back to it. So let's go back to our 2025 job. And we talked about the pricing, the labor category setups. And then the last thing I want to touch on before we go over to time and expense is this invoice selection idea. So the idea here is that as a company, every job can have a unique invoice format, and we see it all the time, is that clients might have 4 or 5 formats for their organization. So each customer could have a different format. So what you're able to do is by job, define how you want that format to be delivered, and I'll print some for you later, but if I wanted to view things by resource or by labor category code, inception date or year-to-date data, identify the invoice report, you can save those settings, and then every time you go to run that particular invoice, the system will default it for you. And then one of the things that is pretty exciting about the 2017, actually 2016 and 2017, for any clients on the call, is that Microsoft created this now interaction with Word. So if you had a purchase order document or even a sales invoice and you wanted to do some kind of tweaks in Word, there is the ability to map the fields inside of Word. You could actually take a Word document and map the fields and bring that back into NAV. So for folks that want to do some either one-off or templates that you define in Word, you can start to do those kind of things. All right, so before I go over to the timesheet, David, actually, do we have a poll about?
I was going to say, you keep mentioning all these products. I was
right.
going to ask if they're using them.
Okay, a good point.
So I'll put up a poll here real quick. For Microsoft products that are out there and the folks that are using them, Office 365 has been around for a while now, 10 years now? I don't know how long it's been around, but it's been around for a while. Outlook, obviously. SharePoint came out a long time ago. Excel, of course. 100% on Excel right now. 17% on other.
Okay.
It's like 67% on Office 365, so still quite a bit.
Okay. Well, give them another 25 seconds. Looks like
Sure.
we've got about 70% have voted. So we'll give 20 more seconds for the other 20% here.
Okay.
What I'm surprised, I'm actually surprised. All right, we're up to 80%. We'll give it 10 seconds. Right now, it's at 75% of the folks are using Office 365.
Yeah.
And you know, Microsoft's got an incredible amount of uptick on that. All right, let's go ahead and close it out. We got to 95%. That's pretty good. So it looks like the majority of people are using Office 365, 75%. We've got 94% using Excel. So I know there's some folks that, you know, some are using some Google tools, but certainly Microsoft is, you know, the leader in terms of the Office suite there. So that's a little bit about the job setup. Now let me talk a little bit about, you know, when we're recording time. So I'm going to go into timesheets. And one of the things that we did is this is our standard timesheet. And then with NAV 2017, we released an advanced timesheet as well as the mobile timesheet. So if anybody that, you know, any clients are interested in the advanced timesheet, we can, you can put a note in the comment box and we can kind of let you know what that means and what it is. But for users that are, you know, out in the field, the key things for them are just, you know, areas around entering time and expenses. So I can look up my PTO balance. I can also request time off. So this would be the process, you know, for a user to go in and identify that, you know, they need to take, you know, a day off, a week off, whatever it might be. So they can identify when they need off. So Damon, I'm going to need Friday off. So I'm going to go ahead and put that in right now. So we'll put in Friday as a date off. And I would put in the reason why. And then I would just choose, like if you guys have different PTO categories, you know, so if you had vacation and sick, maybe I'd put in a sick day today for Friday. And then I would just, once I choose that, you know, we'll go ahead and choose the second here. Hold on.
While you're doing that, Paul,
Yep.
a question did come in here as far as
Yep.
what we were talking about a few minutes ago. Using the Excel and Word integration, do you need Office 365 or can you use the standard on-premise version?
Yeah, no, you can use the standard on-premise version. It looks like I just lost my connection here. So, all right. So, you know, but that's how you would go through a PTO request process there. You can also define a list of favorites. And just hold on 1 second. Let me just restart my browser. Maybe that's my... So as I'm doing this, you know, if you guys have some questions, you know, feel free to ask them, and I'm going to just re-log in. All right, there we go. Looks like we're set. Okay, so favorites. So favorites are a way that, you know, I mentioned the fact that users they only see the charge codes that they're assigned to, you know, so they wouldn't see the full list of company charge codes. They just see the ones they're assigned to. Same thing with the WBS codes. And then what happens is, as a user, I can set my list of favorites. So the idea of favorites, or also administration can set the favorites. So favorites allow me to quickly create that timesheet. So whenever I hit new timesheet, it just drops my favorites in here. One of the things that's nice is that if that period performance expired, it'll no longer add it to my timesheet. So you're not going to have people that, you know, will have lines that they're not going to enter time in because that pop expired. And then what they would do is they would just go to the line that they worked, enter their hours. They wanted to put a comment in there. they can just hit enter comment here and enter the comment, and then they would just save it. So that would be the process they go through on a daily basis. And then it's just giving me an update that it has been saved. Then at the end of the timesheet period, I would just hit my submit button, and then this would start the whole approval workflow process. So straightforward, and you'll see also from a user entering time on a mobile device, very easy there too. The other thing to note is that if I switch between entering time on a mobile device and this client, it all goes to the same table. So I could one day enter my time on my phone, and the next day come to the browser if I wanted to. I can interact with either device anytime. Similar idea with expense reports. So if I'm creating an expense report, if I need to create a new one, I would just hit my new expense report button, put in the period that expense report was for. So let's just say it was for last week. So put in the 14th to the 18th. I'll enter details about my travel. So let's say travel to a client, click save, and now it's going to create my expense header for me. So from this expense header, I could either run my per diem wizard or just add individual lines. So we'll go ahead and we'll run that per diem wizard, and I'll identify where I traveled to. So we're going to choose the state, destination, and county. You can hit the drop-down boxes here, or you can just type in as you go. And then I'll choose the period of time that I was at that location. So we'll just say I was there the whole week. And then I'm going to put in the job. So again, I can type in the number or the description here. And we'll do the same thing for the WBS code. And then the expense code it goes to, you can see it's in English. They're mapped by accounting. So within the accounting system, it identifies that lodging goes to a certain code. And then in this case, I can choose my per diem, which is going to go to a certain GL account. Click next, and now it's showing me my grid. Hit next one more time, and it's showing me what is my lodging ceiling. So I put in my actual lodging, the tax. Click finish, and now it creates my full expense report for me here. From here, if I had additional expenses, I can add those expenses right here. So let's just go ahead and add a couple really quick. So we'll say same project. We'll put it against that same WBS. And let's say we had airfare, and that was $400. I'll save that. I'm going to add one more line, so I'll just leave that checked. And then we'll say that we also had mileage, and it was 50 miles. And then we'll go ahead and save that. So now it just added that detail to my expense report. Again, attachments if needed, save it, and then finally submit it. And that would be my process for creating expense reports. As I mentioned, that on the mobile client, we added that ability to just record expenses on the fly. And then for the expense report, we talked about advanced T&E. With the advanced T&E, we also added the ability for employees to upload their Amex charges or, from other credit cards. So they could actually take their charges and upload them and then code them. So we're adding additional capabilities that clients can leverage there. So as I've entered all those, the time and expenses there, what you're going to see is that inside of NAV, all of those things are now available to me. So I don't need to rekey anything. So for time, what you would do is you would just run, there's an import function. So you're not grabbing a file, you're just running a process. And what it would do is it would take all that approved time and it would fill in your time journal. And then from here, I would process my labor distribution. If you're using a payroll service, we've got integration with ADP, Paychex, Payroll Networks, and I think we just did Paycom. So you can get those things sent off to the payroll provider. If you do payroll in-house, NAV has got its HR and payroll module. And then I would just post it. I guess before I posted it, I would look at my time journal summary to see the details behind it. So before I post this, what's going to happen? So it's going to hit the employee's card, and it's going to show me all the breakout of what hits the employee, shows me a breakout by project, and then down below you see the detail by GL account. All these reports export to Excel, PDF, and Word, so you can push those things out to those formats as needed. And then on expense reports, what you'll see is that same expense report that was being created on the web, when I go down to the bottom, you'll see that same one is built out inside a NAV. And then if I go to the approval tab, you'll see that, okay, it was submitted to Sam today for approval at 12:44. So real time, you're seeing details about approvals in terms of who needs to approve it. So we're leveraging that workflow engine there, and Microsoft has added a significant amount of capabilities on the workflow side, and I'm going to show you that towards the end. So now we've recorded time and expenses, and now it comes to that invoice generation. And I mentioned before we went off the T&E that whole idea of defining what those formats look like, and I talked a little bit about that integration with Word, where you could actually do some formatting in Word and bring it back into the system. But when you want to generate invoices, you can just run the create invoice function. So you're going to choose the job that it's for, the period. We also now have scheduling, so you could schedule for existing clients. You could schedule all of your billing at one time if you wanted, and it'll generate those invoice proposals for you. So I would choose the period, say OK, and then what it does, or I could schedule it, the schedule button. And then what it does, it creates these invoice proposals. It's like a pre-invoice. Before I send it off for approval, I want to review it. So let me grab one that has a little more detail on it. Okay. So before I send it for approval, I want to review it. So I'd go ahead and print my invoice for review. I talked about the different ways you could format it. I'll go ahead and print preview it, and then I'm going to run it a different way in just a second. So you're seeing information about funding up top, and then I've got my elements of cost, my direct labor, materials, travel. This one's cost type, so it's showing me my burdens broken out, my fee, any kind of withholding. Again, because this is a report, you can export it to Excel. And then if I wanted to rerun that same invoice before I sent it, maybe I want to look at it instead of by labor category code, look at it by resource name. So now when I preview this and we look at it by resource name, now you're seeing here are the individual people in the labor category code they're working under. So instead of condensing it by labor category code, it's showing it broken out by person. And then from there, I would send the approval request, and then this can update everybody that needs approval to go out and approve that document. So they would get notified for approval. And then once it's approved, you can go ahead and just post it, and then it becomes a posted invoice. So that, one too many escapes, and that posted invoice, that is, my financial document. So I can't change anything here at this point, but I could email it. So if I need to email that out to a client, I can go ahead and email it to them. Or I could reprint it. And then in addition to just printing a regular format, you can also print it as a 1034 and 1035, so the government formats. So we'll go ahead and preview one of those. So you'll see that that public voucher, you can use that as a way to print preview inside the system. So that kind of takes you through the invoicing process. I think, do we have one last poll, David?
Yeah, there's a lot of questions that came in. Paul,
okay.
I'm going to take a look at this real quick.
Yeah.
I'll go ahead and put another poll up here.
Okay.
Talked about a lot of the different things the Microsoft product can do. So just interested in what the main areas of focus that you're looking for improvement, whether it's integration with other systems, reporting, automation of manual tasks, compliance. We're probably sure it's all and then some. But select all those that apply to you, and we got a lot of coming in, although it's only been a few seconds here. We're just under 40% total, but it looks like a lot of folks looking for automation of manual tasks, obviously the compliance. and
Okay.
the integration.
All right.
So
So actually, I guess that's good. I mean, compliance, that's at the core. And just to let you know, I mean, we've got 100% success rate with clients going through audits. Hopefully, I've shown you some things around automation. Damon, like somehow it seems like you turned on the question machine because now there's like 20 of them in here. So I can't cover all of them, but you know, I'm just going to cherry pick a couple, and we'll follow up with you guys on some of these. So one says, you know, do you support monthly pay cycles? And we do. So the timesheet can be weekly, bi-weekly, semi-monthly, monthly, and they can also be defined by the company. So, and then there's a question that's, is job analogous to projects, or can it be, how are time card corrections handled, and does this integrate with SL? So this doesn't integrate with SL, it's a replacement for SL. Time card corrections, there's the whole correction wizard that can be run as part of correcting old timesheets. And yes, projects and jobs are, you know, basically the same terminology there.
I'm going to go ahead and close the
okay.
poll.
Yeah. Okay. Good.
And we're back to you.
All right. Good. All right. So let me, I don't know how that. See if I can get the question box back in the. Okay, I'll put it towards the bottom. All right. So so that was a little bit about the billing process. And then I want to cover two more things before we go. And then at the end, I'm going to try to cover just a few more of the questions. Okay, we got a little over 5 minutes left. All right, so one of the things that Damon talked about as part of this is the cost pool setup. So this is where indirect rates are set up, you know, so it can be as simple or as complex as your company. And there's, I guess, 3 steps to setting it up. So step 1 is you're defining your structure. So that's just this sequence setup. So where I'm saying sequence 1, 2, 3, 4, and then what happens. So the key to that is just the sequence needs to be in an order that if you have an intermediate pool, it needs to be in a sequence above the final pool where those costs, a portion of them go into. So in my example, fringe in sequence 1, a portion goes into overhead and G&A, so it needs to be above that. So when you have service centers or intermediate pools, they need to be above the final pools that the costs go into. One of the things that's different about this system is when you run the rates, you run it for the company, it goes through all of them for you. So step 1 is structure and sequence. Step 2 is how that rate gets calculated. So you're telling the system, what are the costs I'm accumulating? So what's in my pool, which is all of my overhead accounts for certain departments. Then my base is my direct labor with fringe applied at actual similar concepts with a department setup. From there, you're telling the system, once you accumulate these costs, what's going to happen to them? So they're either going to go into other GL accounts to be later picked up, or if it's a final pool, they're going to go out to projects. So this is saying, you know, actual to projects and also provisional to projects. The actual calculation is just grabbing the pool and the base and doing a calculation and then allocating that out to any job, you know, that has any of the base elements in it. Then the last step is identifying what is my provisional rate. So you can see that this is date sensitive. So as your rates escalate, you can identify, you know, your future rates. From a provisional perspective, when you get the approved final rates, you can plug that in. And then every month, you're just running, you know, your allocate cost function. So you just come in, type in allocate costs, and I would run this function for a certain period. And if I was doing it based on final rates, I can do that. You can also schedule it. When you run those rate calculations, one of the things that happens is it hits both the job ledger and the general ledger. And just to give you a sense for what it looks like, I'm going to look at just my allocation accounts. I'm going to set a filter for just my allocation accounts. If I could type the right number, that would help. So .9610. And Okay, for some reason okay, I'll skip the filter idea. I don't know what I'm doing wrong there. But what happens is for each pool, you end up with 4 allocation accounts. So you're going to see for my overhead company site, I've got an actual, a contra to that, provisional, and a contra to that. And then, so you can see in this case, I've got a lot more actual overhead based on actual cost than provisional. So if I drill into the actual, it's going to show me the breakout, you know, by job, department, and task, what amount in terms of an allocation there. So you'll see all the history, and then the description, you see the detail of the rates there. So it just gives you a little sense of how those rates get calculated. And then the one other thing is I've got set up in my other demo system that I want to show you is that, go to my client, we also just updated our, okay, just got a couple minutes left. All right, we just updated our incurred cost process. So what it allows us to do is we are now using incurred cost inside of NAV, and we've got a whole wizard structure that can actually create the incurred cost schedules for you. So we used to do it in Excel, and now we've built out some new capabilities to allow you to build this out inside of NAV and for users to walk through and create that structure as they go. So this is something that we're really excited about. And the other thing that I'm going to close it out with is that we also defined, we talked about workflows. And within the workflows, one of the ones that I think the people are going to be excited about is we built a workflow for the closing automation process. So if you have an accounting department where multiple people are involved in the close process, what this does, it creates like a checklist for you. So you want to make sure, because what we've seen is that as people learn how to use the system, they're trying to figure out, you know, what are the steps that I should take in terms of a month-end close? And maybe you've got some kind of sheet in Excel. Well, this allows you to build that process inside of NAV, and then as you go through, you know, you can see that each step in the workflow, you know, step 1 is I need to run my allocate cost function, and then I need to, you know, calculate my revenue accrual process. So at each step in the process, you identify who's going to be performing that function, and it can trigger an email out to that person. You know, I've just finished the allocate cost function. It triggers an email to Damon, and Damon is the person that does our revenue accrual process. So it's a nice way for you to build out a checklist, but also, you know, have some communication by the system, and it's going to keep all that tracked in there. So I've got just a minute, Damon is saying. So I see some more questions that came in. And let me just cover just a couple more if we've got time, if I can pull this thing up here. So it looks like we got a client, Karen is interested in the 2017 timesheet enhancement. So Karen, I'll contact you after this. There is one that just came in. Do contracts have negotiated, if contracts have negotiated fee, does it calculate applied fee throughout the project? Does it handle FCCM, which I'm guessing you're saying facilities cost of money? So, and it does, and you can calculate when you're saying applied fee. I'm guessing you're talking about if you have a unique fee structure to that job, and it certainly can do that. So I want to make sure we leave on time. So for everybody that attended, 1, thank you for attending, and number 2, we will follow up with you to answer the questions, because there was just a lot we couldn't get to. But again, we appreciate your time. For the clients in the call, we really appreciate your business. And for the future clients, we're looking forward to working with you. And have a great afternoon, everybody.